Hey there, I'm Colin Weston. Welcome to the Mod Golf YouTube channel. So today, my guest is Nick Longley, who is the co-founder of Inrange Golf. And Nick and I just finished up a long form audio conversation for our podcast where we talked about all kinds of great things. We talked about the past of Inrange, the aha moment, how they formulated their market strategy, all that good stuff. But we're going to talk about the future now. We're going to talk about where they are now, and we're going to talk about Nick's personal entrepreneurial experience, and kind of take it from there. So, with no further ado, let me bring Nick on. So, Nick, hey, welcome back. How you doing?
Great.
Good stuff. Good
Good to
stuff.
see you
So,
again.
as I just mentioned, yeah, we talked about the formation 5 years ago of Inrange, where you saw the market opportunity and kind of started the company with the first couple of steps, your first couple of customers. So before we get into what you're doing now and the exciting things in the future and some other great things we're going to talk about, for everybody out there, they're thinking, what the heck is Inrange? Here you go. Pretend I'm an investor. Give us all and our viewers the elevator pitch of Inrange and what you do and why you do it.
All right, great. So Inrange, what we've created is the ability to take any driving range, whether it be an existing range or a brand new range, and create this engaging experience for both golfers and non-golfers. Do that through we've created and developed a radar tracking array that we put around a range that allows us to track every single ball hit from every single bay in that range and deliver it to this engaging touchscreen or mobile experience.
Yeah, love that. Love that. So on the podcast, we talked about your early successes and the things that really worked and resonated both with users. So everybody with a club in their hand, whether they're a scratch golfer or never picked up a club in their life, and also your customers. So the range owners. So as an entrepreneur, because you mentioned this, it's not a straight line. Entrepreneurship is like this and back and forth. So share with us something that didn't work, something you thought in your mind and your team you believed was going to be successful and perhaps didn't work out, but perhaps gave you an opportunity to learn from and then build something better. So share something there that you created and it didn't quite be as successful as you thought it was going to be.
I suppose our mobile play experience was our greatest investment that needed to be pivoted away from, shall we say. So, we created the whole concept of the business was that we could take anybody with their mobile phone, they'd walk into a range, whether it be a green grass range or a covered range. You'd arrive, put your phone in a stand, log in, and you just play. And you'd get all of this data, this whole immersive experience that you could then take home with you. And that Inrange mobile experience lives today and is very engaging and is used by rangers all around the world. But our assumption was that, for a very small fee, players would be willing to pay for that experience, and we just were unable to get people to say yes, I would pay $10 a month or whatever it may be to take this on, and we realized that while the player, as we chatted about earlier, while the player is our end consumer, is the person we're delivering the experience to, the player was not our customer, and our customer was the range owner who wanted to totally change their range business. And once we realized that, we then developed our touchscreen, our Inrange and Inrange Plus touchscreen experiences, and things just took off. But that was a long time. That was I think we went live with our first mobile app through the app stores in December 2019, and we formed the business. We had prototype within the AlphaWave group for some before this, but we formed that business in June 2017. So that was a year and a half of development that, while it lived, I would probably say was not a success. But we learned a lot through that, and thankfully, our Inrange app has become an essential, effectively like second screen. So it's the way that we engage with players off the range. So it's that reward that we give you. So it's not enough to just play. It's about what do we give you afterwards, which then is that reward, which you then have that investment and come back, that trigger that gets you back onto the range.
what I really like about that story that you just shared is you didn't fall into that founders or entrepreneurial startup trap where your ego gets in the way, where you say, people just don't get it yet. They don't understand it, or perhaps the market timing isn't quite right, that we just need to keep going, which is this tricky balance in entrepreneurship. There's no playbook or one size fits all. That yes, you want to be tenacious, you want to persevere, but you got the feedback there that this wasn't working, that having that, it was the technology was there, but it was the business model of getting people to pay for that. Where I'm assuming now that the app that you have and all the gamification and leaderboards and interactivity that you have there, is the app free now for myself as a user, as a player? So I'm able to download that, but then you got the stickiness, because then through alerts and notifications, you then engage me even more. So is that a correct way to say where you've kind of pivoted or kind of advanced that and kind of moved the app experience forward?
That's exactly it. And I, again, I'm not sure I take the credit for being for not into the trap. The only thing I can say is I've got a fantastic team, and some of my sort of early team that joined me here are not scared to tell me I'm wrong. So that's I think the best thing we've got in the team is we've got a team who are willing to say, yeah, nice idea, Nick, but it's just not going to work. Like, you're wrong. Here's another way, or I just don't think that's it. And they don't it's not just a case of, oh, you're right, let's go and build that, because we know. So we've spoken to customers, and I listen to the team, and that's been what's allowed us to be nimble and to learn, take our sort of curves and pivots as we've gone through.
I'm glad you touched on that, because in so many organizations and startups, the culture, they don't even create a culture. They don't think there's value in that. They think that's something we can create afterwards. We got to focus on product, customers, revenue. Let's get in that. And then that whole culture thing, and the kind of leadership approach, that's something we can like graft on to a tree later on. And as you know, that doesn't work that way. So what I'm picking up from you mentioning there, Nick, is your leadership style is very inclusive and listening. It sounds like people are not intimidated at all or fearful that they're going to be reprimanded by challenging you. In fact, you encourage that. So with that, tell us a little bit about the culture, and kind of the vision, the culture that you're creating with the company there, with Inrange being your product, but with Alpha Golf, I believe it is, with what you're creating there. So yeah, tell us about that, with the culture and what's important for you there with creating your team and creating all the culture there.
Yeah, so we hit an intersection point, I would say probably September, October last year, where we were starting to scale at a pace where I could just see pain coming. So we didn't have a good enough leadership structure put together, and I could see things creaking. Things were starting to sort of split at the edges. And we took a step and said, right, we need to now really invest into our leadership structure, into putting great people into positions, because there was too much sitting on myself, on SJ, my co-founder, and we realized that we weren't the best people to be doing what we were doing. We had far better people in our teams, and we needed to give them the mandate and the opportunity to make those mistakes themselves. So we've invested a lot over the last, I suppose it's 6 to 9 months now, in creating that leadership structure. When you ask about the culture, so we come from an interesting place. So my team, the engineering team and the team that report to SJ, their project before Inrange was creating what we call the Meerkat. So it is it's a prototype deep space antenna, which has now been brought into the square kilometer array, the astronomy telescope array, as I say, in South Africa, in Australia, and here in the UK. And so there's this culture of almost zero tolerance. I mean, these receivers that the guys, SJ led, that they developed, these are cryogenically cooled receivers, because anything above absolute zero creates interference and noise, and they're looking for evidence of the Big Bang, right? So you can't have noise in that signal. So the team comes from the starting point of zero tolerance for error, of absolute excellence. And while we really value that, and we foster that culture, but we've had to bring in other parts into that, right? We've had to bring in that sort of that ability and that willingness to fail, and pivot quickly, which is almost an anathema to the way that you build a deep space antenna, right? So the culture of excellence, the culture of all in, and our all in cultures is almost a little bit of a double-edged sword as well, because as you'll know, you're building a business, starting a business, everybody's in, and you've almost got to unlearn that all inness, and you've got to be willing to say, right, yes, I love the fact that you were willing to work all night and not sleep for 2 days solid, but what we need to now think about is what systems and processes do we need to have in place such that doesn't happen, because that's not how we build a business. That's not how we have happy and successful employees. And one of the strange conversations that I now find myself having, and as a I think in the US you call it CPA, a chartered accountant by training, talking about happiness at work it feels a bit weird, right? But I sit down with my direct reports, and we're coaching that through the business, that we talk around happiness, right? Are you happy? And I ascribe to some of the work by Daniel Pink, and I don't know if you know his work, his book Drive. Yes, and it really talks to me. And you can sit down with somebody, and some of the most amazing conversations I've had with people that I've worked with over the years are just to understand more about what drives them, what makes them tick, because it's so seldom what I think it would be. So you sit down and you say, right, what's your purpose? Do you value autonomy? What is it? Is mastery the thing? And the things that you get out of that. So we have those conversations internally, and people now feel comfortable to say, you know what, I'm not happy now. And if your team are willing to sit there and say, you know what, I'm not happy, it allows you to have a conversation that says, right, let's get into the weeds here. What is making you not happy? Because I've learned now that if you've got a team, they will, and you tell them or ask them to do things, they'll do that. But if you've got a group of people, and we're in a creative business, right? We've developed these these radars, we've developed the software. There's no ways that I could have directed any of that, or myself or SEO, any of the team could direct that development. The only reason we've got there is we've got amazing people who love what they do, and they're bubbling up these ideas. I mean, I've got my new product manager with, he came from he joined us as an intern. I mean, this guy's is a year out of university, and he's leading the product development of Inrange software, and he's doing an amazing job because he's got a mandate to go out there and build and make mistakes and come to me and say, look, Nick, I'm not happy with this stuff. I need the opportunity to go here. And it's just, we're getting so much more than you generally would expect from a team member, because this is their business. They're part of creating it, and they get to speak to customers and see how much joy we bring to the people who engage with Inrange on a daily basis.
I love this. So many things that you just mentioned there. In fact, you empower your employees and give them that opportunity to, take some risks and experiment, right? It's not a failure. We talked to, what you mentioned earlier there with the app at the beginning, it wasn't necessarily a failure. That was an experiment. I know in entrepreneurship, it's a bit of a cliche. People say with a failure or something doesn't work, oh, it was a learning opportunity. But in this case, it really was the insights that informed you for pivoting and seeing that it was more the customer alignment with your products more than the actual technology is what you learn the most from people not paying $10 per month to download the app and moving forward with that. So hey, want to ask you this about the future. A couple of minutes we have left here. Talk about pivoting or innovating and giving your team the opportunity to and the resources to create new products and new features, new experiences. I believe you've got a bit of a game changer that you're creating a compact range experience that could completely change this market, because now with a traditional driving range or new ones, you're no longer required to have, we call the field of play, where all the targets, to have that 200 or 250 yards out and take up 10 to 15 acres or 20 hectares of land, that now you're able to compress that down. So tell us about what you have going on with the Inrange compact solution.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about this, and it does start with, if we bring it back to our previous conversation, it starts with the customer, right? So the customer wants to create this vibe, wants to create this range experience. Now, who's your demographic? You want people, you want your urban demographic. You want people who are short on time and have got the money to spend on an experience. Now, those people aren't rural; they're in cities, right? So our Greenwich, we're in a very abnormal situation that Greenwich is across the river from Canary Wharf. I mean, you are dead center in London, but those opportunities in that land doesn't exist much in the world. So we looked at it and said, right, there's a huge opportunity for new ranges, right? So the business is not just in enhancing existing ranges. There is very much the opportunity to create new, and we're seeing a lot of this, right? And increasingly, Inrange is being selected as the partner for people who are building new ranges. But those people want to be certain that if they build something, they will come, right? So if you enhance an existing range, they've got an existing demographic. But people are building something new. They're going, okay, right, well, I can't find land that's close enough to my target demographic. We looked and said, well, what happens if we said, you don't need 250 yards, you only need 70 yards? Does that open up your addressable market of land? Of course it does. So we've created now a solution which then takes that traditional range, and it takes the best of the range and of what I suppose in Korea they call screen golf, your simulator type. Now it takes that and says, right, let's give you the satisfaction of seeing a ball in full flight, of feeling that I hit that ball and it really traveled through the air. And let's give you enough travel so that you get that endorphin rush of a really well hit shot. But then let's arrest that at say 70, 80 yards, however much room you have. And then let's extrapolate that out. Now, the difficulty was, we're an excellence business, right? Our whole business is built on, you trust the data we give you. If we tell you hit it 253 yards, that's how far you hit it. So the challenge was, can we take a ball that may even not have reached its apex and extrapolate out that flight such that you can trust it? So now if you've got a launch monitor, that's a lot easier now, because you've got all of the characteristics at ball impact. Spin, club head speed, you'll know all of those things. But a range solution like ours, we're not in the bay. We don't see that. So I'm really proud of the team. They've now developed the ability to give that quality of data in a range solution, which, as you say, that it just explodes the addressable market. And entrepreneurs who go, right, I've got property, or I've got a course, but I don't have enough space for me to put a long range on. I can put up some nets and have a 70 yard range on my property. Fantastic. All of a sudden that's now addressable, and then you can do that. And I think it's going to be really attractive, especially to the entrepreneur who sees that opportunity to get that entertainment market, because that's the demographic that are in that urban area.
Nice. And a lot of the work that we've done with Reviver Sport Entertainment is not just in golf, but sport. How do we physically bring the sport to the people, whether it's surf parks that we've developed over the years, and especially in golf and Top Golf in the US, they've required 15, 16 acres of land with all the parking and the field of play and the 250 yards. So it is a 40-minute drive from an urban area, but now you're able to, it's so exciting because the parcels of land that you're able to unlock for potential sites is probably 10 to 20 times, if not more, greater than what you would have for a traditional golf entertainment center. So with that, I understand you are in the process of building your first one. Is that correct? Is that in Sydney, Australia? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it's a group there that have quite a deep interest in hospitality in Australia. They have some interest in golf driving ranges, and this is going to be a new build in Sydney. I think it's a 70-meter long range. It's a beautiful build. I mean, they've really invested in that whole customer experience. So it's a compact experience, but it's very high end. And yeah, very excited for that to go live in sort of Q3, Q4 this year.
Fun, good stuff. Can't wait to see that. Maybe one of those will come to Canada pretty soon. Who knows what's going on? Is that the North American market? Because you really had as your beachhead in the UK to prove this out, and then Europe and expand beyond. Is your next strategy to hit the North American market hard?
Absolutely, the North American market is exploding for us. So I mean, we've got I think we've got 3 teams in the US at the moment installing as we speak. And we've got a number of ranges up there. I was in Indianapolis last week, and we got a number of ranges. As I say, we've got 3 teams installing as we speak.
Nice. So, hey, to finish up here, I want to talk about on more of the personal side, you as an entrepreneur, and you mentioned yourself as an accountant and a CPA. You mentioned earlier, kind of off the mic, that you consider yourself as a frustrated accountant, and myself too as a frustrated architect, and a bit of a disengaged piece in my profession there, and also an opportunity is how I got into entrepreneurship. So it sounds like your journey is very similar. So to finish up here, for our viewers that are considering entrepreneurship, perhaps they have an idea, but maybe they don't have the confidence to take that first step. Talk about your background in entrepreneurship. Is this something as a little kid that you were hustling and doing stuff that was entrepreneurial, or is this something that came to you later in life?
No, this has been a journey for me. I didn't grow. I wasn't lucky enough to grow up in one of those families which really pushed entrepreneurship as a direction to take. Very very traditional family. For us, it was get yourself into a big corporate. That was success, and what we call then small business, which we now has a much better term in startups and such. That was almost a swear word. That was okay. If you couldn't make it elsewhere, you go, okay, you're in a small business. So I'm sorry to hear that. So that was definitely not something I was groomed towards. I studied IT and then chartered accountancy at university. But all of that said, my journey has been one that I believe I've only had the opportunity and the luxury and the luck to do what I'm doing now based on a baseline that I was afforded through the businesses I was part of. So I spent 10 so I was at 10-15 years in consulting and running IT organizations before I joined Inrange, or before we started Inrange. And I really think that has helped us, especially now in the scaling phase. It's all very well to come up with an idea and get people excited about it, but it's that scaling where things either work or don't work, and learning how to work with teams, learning how to put structures and processes and such together has really afforded us the opportunity to now start scaling and taking on the opportunities in front of us. So I don't think I would have done it any differently to what's happened. And again, I've been very lucky. So I was lucky enough to be part of an investment team that invested into Inrange at prototype stage. I was lucky enough to have had finance background and a software background, such that it was a case of, well, someone's got to do it. Well, I'll take it on. So there's a lot of things that I learned in the 10-15 years before I joined the business that's allowed me to take this on. And we, again, I say lucky a lot. And I think that is something that is important to note. There is a lot of luck in this. There's a lot of things that have gone well. We've got a fantastic set of investors and shareholders. And I'm lucky enough to have a technical team that have built the quality of technology that we have. So I think my only, to answer your question in a much shorter way, is my only advice to people is be willing to pay your school fees. Let somebody go and make the mistakes on somebody else's dime for a while. Learn to be, learn stuff first. Let somebody, don't be arrogant. Take the time, learn within another organization, and then take that on and take that for yourself, rather than trying to learn everything straight out of university or whatever, on your money.
Yeah, that's a great nugget of wisdom right there. As not that I would call you a seniorpreneur, you're much younger than that, but yes, there is virtue and value, and the success statistics prove it out, that entrepreneurs that are a little bit older have some professional success under their belt and take that experience and the relationships that they built up over those years to then add as the ingredients and the fuel to the thing that they're creating, rather than someone that's right out of school. Everybody's thinking that entrepreneurs, it's all these fresh-faced people that are in their early 20s that have the drive and the energy and the hustle, but they don't necessarily have the experience. Yes, some of them are successful, but they don't have the years of experience like you have to fall back on, all the things that have worked, and even more so the things that haven't, so you don't make those same mistakes, or someone else has paid for you to make those mistakes in the past, as you mentioned, on someone else's dime. Absolutely. So, hey, why don't we finish up there, Nick? So, hey, thanks for joining me again on the Mod Golf YouTube channel here, for sharing your personal story, the Inrange story. I love you talking about the culture of Inrange and sharing your leadership qualities. As I get to know you, I can certainly say that you're someone I'd certainly follow, someone I'd certainly work for, because you understand, or it just comes out in you, it's who you are, all those qualities that make for, I don't like to use the term serial entrepreneur. I like to call it a successful entrepreneur. And I consider you're one of them as a leader, not just a boss, but someone that's curious, someone that's tenacious, someone that's empathetic, and someone that listens. And you certainly do all those things. So, hey, Nick, again, thanks very much for joining me today on the Mod Golf YouTube channel. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Colin. It's been an absolute pleasure.